Welcome everyone as we get set for the 2014-2015 basketball season at UMass Dartmouth. John Cabral here, joined by men's basketball head coach Brian Baptiste, entering his 31st season, and his first win of this year will be number 550 in his long and storied career here at UMass Dartmouth. And Coach, you're coming into this year off a successful campaign last year as you're starting to turn that corner again. A 16-11 year, got out to a great 10-3 start, and I imagine you got to be pretty optimistic about your chances to climb back to the top of the Little East ladder this year.
I am. I think we can build off of last year's success with the 16-11 record, and we had a lot of returners come back from last year, and we've had our share of injuries early on this year, but I'd rather have them now than happen when the season's going on.
And your season has a lot of similarities to years that you've had in the past, and starting with first, you'll have an opening weekend tip-off tournament here, the Hampton Inn Classic, coming as soon as they let you play on the 15th and 16th, and this is something you've been a believer in for a while. You're about 15 years into this tournament. How do you go about putting it together, and what are you trying to accomplish to set your team up to go into the meat and potatoes of the season schedule?
Well, the Hampton Inn tournament is something that gives us two more home games. A lot of teams are trying to host tip-off tournaments, so there's a lot of competition out there to draw a good field. We put it up online at dchoops.com, which is a national site, and teams from all over the country see it, and they just decide where they want to go. And we've been fortunate. We've had some really good teams come into our tournament. A lot of the NESCAC teams like to come to that tournament because we don't get to play them often during the regular season. So that's good for us because I want to play the best schedule I can. I want to play the best teams out there, and that's how you measure yourself. And my goals are always to win the conference tournament, win the conference regular season, and get an NCAA bid. And in order to do that, you have to play against quality teams year in and year out.
And you mentioned those quality teams, a couple that you've got that you may or may not play depending on how the tournament shakes out, or Trinity, who's one of those NESCAC teams that you
Correct.
mentioned. There's somebody you really got to get on a weekend to play them because they don't like to play midweek. And then you have Staten Island as well, a team that's been in the NCAA tournament several times as well. So
right.
Tell me a little bit about those opponents and how those can kind of build a foundation for your team playing against some strong squads.
Well, those two teams are quality teams. Staten Island had a really good year last year, and they're coming off one of their top seasons. I know they lost one of their good players, but they have everyone else back, so there'll be another. I'm sure they'll be looking for another quality season. Trinity is usually a good team year in and year out. They play in a very good conference. So we'll be looking forward to that competition. The fourth team in the tournament is Salem State. We play Salem every year. We're not doing a tournament format this year because we have Salem scheduled on the following Saturday after the tournament. So it's going to be more of a classic style format. We'll play Trinity one night, we'll play Staten Island the following night, and Salem will do the same. And then Salem will be back at our gym on the following Saturday for another home game for us.
And so that's the first portion of your schedule, is that home tournament, and you play a lot of teams that are local in the area out of conference over the rest of the 2014 part of your schedule, and then it ends pretty quickly to get into finals. And then customarily your season after that, you'll take a trip somewhere out of area around the new year to bring the team together a little bit, get a couple looks at out-of-region teams, and you're doing that again as you flip the calendar into 2015. Tell me about that.
Yeah, we're looking forward to the trip you mentioned. This year we're going back to Miami. There's a school down there that hosts teams from New England and the Midwest. Usually there's teams in New England and Midwest that want to get out of the winter for a little while, play a couple of ball games, and we're fortunate enough we go down there. We're going to be playing Marietta from Ohio and Messiah from Pennsylvania. And new legislation that's happened in the NCAA in the past 3 years is that a Division III game is a Division III game. So when you're trying to get to the NCAA tournament throughout your season, out-of-region games weren't counted when you were comparing teams to make the NCAA tournament, and now they all are. So it's nice to be able to travel and play teams out of the region, see what you're going to be up against, because different regions have different styles of play. When you get to the NCAA tournament, you get to understand that a little bit. And we've been fortunate to be in quite a few of those NCAA tournaments in the past. And it's nice to get to see what style of play they'll be playing. Marietta being a Midwest team, and Pennsylvania being a Mid-Atlantic team.
And you'll get a little taste of conference play before the semester ends and before the year is over, but that really begins in earnest when you come back home from that trip. And once you get into January is when you get into that twice-a-week pattern of going Tuesday and Saturday throughout the season. And men's basketball has always just been fantastically competitive within the Little East Conference. And right now, you remain there right in the mix with a couple of teams that have been there for a couple of years running now. And we'll start with Eastern Connecticut, a team that's really come on strong in these last couple of years behind Bill Geithner to really become somebody that can contend for and win the league title. How are they looking coming into this year?
Well, I thought Easton was the best team throughout last year. They got knocked off in the conference finals, but they were tough. They were senior-oriented. They lost a lot of scoring from that team last year, but they had a good foundation. They had some kids that were in the program that should be good in the future, and they do have their starting point guard back, and that's always a nice point to start at.
And then to take a look down the road here to Rhode Island College, they of course have the big shift with head coach Bob Walsh moving on to the University of Maine and bringing in a new coaching staff for this year, but they have still a lot of good players there in place, and I imagine they're somebody that you're going to be right in there with some tough games against like you've had for so many years now.
Yeah, I foresee the same thing that you're talking about right now. I think that they might have the best returning players in the conference, so they will be a quality team again this year.
And then the other one that comes to mind, if you've been watching these games over the years, like I certainly have, and you've been coaching, is Keene State's a team that you've had some great battles with over the years, and they've been sort of hard to peg these last couple of years. They've been up, they've been down, up and down again, but certainly a team that on paper looks to be one that can win a lot of games again.
I agree, John. I think that Keene State has a good program going. They have a 7-footer who's a pretty good basketball player, and you know, he's been in the conference now for a couple of years. And when you have a 7-footer that plays, and he's been starting or coming off the bench and playing a lot of minutes, his first year and then second year played a little bit better. And when you got a 7-footer, and as he gets older, he just gets better and better. So they'll be tough to contend with also because of their size.
And now taking a look at your own squad as you do develop, and this group comes back again off of a 16-win year and looks to take that next step. A couple of names that immediately come to mind are Wally Abraham and Jake Laga, guys that have been good, solid players for you for a couple of years now. Do you look at them as the leaders of this team this year?
Well, yeah, Wally, Defensive Player of the Year in the conference last year, had an outstanding season. So, you know, definitely he kind of shores up our rebounding, shot blocking, and defensive end of the floor. Jake is an all-around good player, good captain, good leader, gives us some offense, and is also a tough defender. And we also have John Jenkos back from the previous year, down with an ACL tear last year, and now he's a fifth-year senior playing for us again. That gives us another veteran player with some leadership, and he'll be a big addition to have him back on the roster again this year.
And then your team, something you brought into the fold over the years, ever since you've been able to get Ed Rodricks on your staff since you retired from New Bedford High, is you featured more of the press that was a signature for him for so long, and that's something that helped lift you all the way to a Sweet 16 the first year that you really made that commitment to it. Is that something we're going to see more from your team in this season?
Actually, not this year, no. We plan on using the press, but we'll use it sparingly when we think we have an advantage and our team has an advantage over the other team to turn them over. I think in those games we'll use it a little bit more. Also, we'll need it if we're trailing late in the game or late in the half and we want to spurt. That's when we'll put the press on in those situations. The years that Ed was with me, we had a team that I thought was more fitting for pressure defense. We were deep. We had a lot of quickness, and I thought it was very successful during those years.
And as you come into this season, you're always looking to reload your roster, and something that's been a strength of yours over the course of your tenure here is you've been able to pull transfer players, and you've also been able to find some players in the middle of a season that for whatever reason their playing situation isn't working out at their school, whether they don't want to be at that school anymore or they're dissatisfied with playing time. Do you have anyone that fits into that mold as somebody that's coming to you kind of from an unusual road to be on this team this year?
Nothing unusual, but we do have a transfer player in Jordan Resendiz. He's a Wareham product who went to junior college for a couple of years and transferred into UMass Dartmouth. I've been watching Jordan play since he was in high school, and my personal opinion, he's a tremendous basketball player and he's going to be a real big asset to our program this year.
Also, just historically here for a moment, I might not get another chance to talk with you about this. It must have been a proud moment for you a couple weeks back as one of the great players that you brought through here, and Marcus Hauptman goes into the UMass Dartmouth Hall of Fame. Some tremendous years he had around the beginning of this century and helped your team win a lot of games. Tell me about how fitting that must have been for him and how proud you must have been to put him in.
Yeah, Marcus was definitely someone who deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. He had a good career here, transferred, went from New Bedford, went to Stonehill, from Stonehill transferred to UMass Dartmouth, had a very successful career, is one of many basketball players we have in the Hall of Fame, and hopefully there's many more to come. And
if that is to happen, of course, you're looking to get back up to that level where you can win and win into February and March. And it was fun to see one of the things last year, another win on the road in the conference tournament is something that your teams have been able to do a number of times. But I imagine the goal this year is you want to get more of those games at home.
Yeah, I mean, early on in the conference years, and for many of those conference years, we were hosting that tournament. I mean, the other coaches used to call it the UMass Dartmouth tournament. But unfortunately, we in the past 3 or 4 years, we weren't able to. We weren't the best team in the conference going into the tournament, so we've had to play on the road. But our goals are the same. We still want to be very competitive, and we want to have championship teams. So, you know, hopefully we can get a couple of more of those Little East Conference tournaments played at the Tripp Gymnasium.
And that can be a fantastic atmosphere for games. We've been there on nights when that building's been packed out and been near capacity, and there's also some other nights where there aren't quite so many people there. So you've got a lot of people along the South Coast maybe seeing this on DCTV or checking it out online. Just make the plug. It's great entertainment for short money. I mean, you know that and I know that, but share it with the people watching, you know, the fun they can have if they come out to the Tripp for a game.
You know, absolutely, John. I think you're right, and I think this is going to enhance our program right here by being out there in the public and the community. And if you do come out, I think you'll really enjoy the game, and it's real quality basketball.
First two will be coming up on November the 15th and the 16th, Saturday and Sunday on opening weekend. Coach, best of luck to you in those games and throughout this season.
Thank you, John. It's always a pleasure.
All right, it's Brian Baptiste, head men's basketball coach at UMass Dartmouth. They're ready to tip it off for 2014-15.